Hey you guys, so it's Therese, and today I'm coming with you with a random video. Because if you guys don't know, I recently read 50 Shades of Grey while I was on a family trip. Not the best time to read an erotic novel when you're with family. Granted, it wasn't that great of an erotic novel, so I wasn't so much giggling and blushing as I was gagging and being revolted. So this is more of a rant video. But while I was reading, this is the reason why I am making this this video, because you guys have probably seen multiple videos like this, because I am not the first person to really hate this book. However, I decided to make this video because as I was reading the book, I realized there was my biggest problem with it was not, I had a lot of problems, but the biggest issue that I had at the current moment was how Anna, right? It's not Anna, it's not Anna, it's Anna. I haven't seen the movie. How the main character, Anastasia, was treated this entire book. And it's not so much like the treatment of Christian to Anna, but more so the writer to Anna. And as an author, as a reader, as a feminist, as someone who likes to read about strong women, this didn't really vibe with me. And for some reason, I found myself, while reading this book, thinking that somehow Bella, who Anna is based off of, had more character and more progression and more of a backbone than this character will ever have. So let's get into it. But essentially, if you guys don't know what 50 Shades of Grey is, I looked this up. But the author had initially wrote this as a continuation of the Twilight series to see what Bella and Edward were up to. At the same time, it was also filling some weird sexual fantasy she had as she was going through a midlife crisis, but whatever. But I went through the book with basically zero expectations. I was thinking, you know what, I can get past the shitty bad boy. That seemed to be a very popular trope in the early 2010s. I can get past really bad writing because it happens. And I'm not saying that to be mean, but it does happen where things need to be developed more. Writing prose doesn't work with me. There's just a lot of random stuff that don't really work out. And that's fine. Lack of research for what BDSM actually is and the concept of it. However, my biggest problem with this book in particular, it is, aside from the fact that Christian Grey is a really abusive asshole who is stalking and manipulative and shows off all the red flags in my brain and everyone else's brain but Anna's, but it's also the fact that Anna, who is the main character, okay, tangent. She's an English major, right? She's an English major. And if you guys have read any kind of classical literature for class, for your master's, your bachelor's, for fun, you know how many innuendos, how many random sexual remarks or euphemisms are in there, and what a wet dream is. And somehow this girl who graduated with a bachelor's in English and wants to go into publishing where you have to analyze all this stuff so it comes together for the writer, so it becomes a really good book, doesn't know what a wet dream is? What classic literature were you reading? Literally no classic literature goes through, especially if it's written by a man. Let's face it, the men in classic literature or something, if you've read Shakespeare, you know. So it's just surprising that she's like, oh my god, you can have dreams about sex? Really? Really, if I were to, it's a lot. And then some of the lines in the book were I remember I was reading this before I left for San Francisco at work during my lunchtime hour. I had my favorite food ever. I was eating it, kind of chuckling along, and I remember she said something that was his tongue caresses my name, and my tongue just pushed the food out of my mouth and back into my plate, and I was this is fine. And on top of that, there was one time where she had a sexual encounter with him, and she does nothing but refer to it as an assault. And I get it, rough sex, that happens. However, when my mind goes to assault, I don't think of pleasure. I don't think, even if say you are into the BDSM, sadism, masochism kind of situation, I don't think that when you refer to it as an assault, it's considered pleasurable. You can say someone was really rough with you, was really aggressive, and have it be consensual, but when I think of the word assault, I think of it as non-consensual, not pleasurable in any situation, very painful, and something you wouldn't want to happen again. Like, I don't know. So it was just appalling to me that so many people have raved about this as a romantic relationship and something to be sought after, and are basing a lot of their sexual fantasies off of Christian Grey, when he is this really terrible human being who spends the entire book stalking her, manipulating her, and like essentially justifying a lot of his shitty behavior because of a trauma that happened to him. And yes, traumas are terrible. Traumas can shape who you are. But at the end of the day, the trauma gives you a reason why you say you flinch when someone comes near you, why you are fixated on a certain object. But it does not give you any reason to send someone random books at their own time, change their flights, go to their, somehow figure out where you're staying at where you're gonna be at for a certain time of day when you're visiting your mother. Any of this stuff. Absolutely none. Oh, and go to a club where you're wasted. Like, let's face it, she's 21. She just graduated college. Yes, she's never been drinking before, so she's not going to know her limits. But, like, it's not your prerogative to go to this random bar by stalking her phone to talk to like, stop her. Like, I'm sorry? Like, I don't know. Like, it's just a lot of things that add up that don't make a lot of sense in my brain for anyone to read that and think, ping, happy relationship, ping, healthy thing, ping, we should all look for a Christian Grey in our life. Okay, but aside from that, Anna starts off essentially a crumb. She is nothing. We are trying to build her up from a crumb to a cupcake or something by the end of the book. But the entire book, from the minute she meets Christian Grey to the minute the book ends with her leaving, she spends the entirety of the time justifying his behavior, his actions, and thinking somehow by changing herself and shifting her entire personality and her likes and her dislikes, she will somehow change him for the better. And that is because he slept in the same bed with her. They made love like 3 times. And somehow that equates to something. There's a lot of firsts that happen, like he doesn't play piano in front of girls, doesn't sleep in the same bed as them, never met their family, took them out on a helicopter. So it was just a lot of situations that didn't add up to me. And like a lot of the situations that happened for her to become a first for him was so she would end up signing the NDA, which is the non-disclosure agreement, for not just the NDA, but the contract about the whole BDSM thing and what he likes and how he wants it. And it just didn't make any sense to me. And at the same time, he had 0 boundaries. Like, they were at a family situation, and I forgot what got him so pissed off. But I remember the first thing was that he likes to spank her as a punishment. Do you? But I remember the first thought that went into her head when she was going to be punished was, no, not here. Because they were at a boathouse at his family's home, having dinner with his family, which I think is a very natural thing to say no to. Like, regardless of BDSM, of like a contract of agreements, when you say no, you say no. And like, if that is your first thought for a situation like this one, that should be an instinct for you to not want to be in this relationship. It shouldn't be, oh no, not again. I don't know. And like I said, she spends the entirety of this book where she is the main character, she is the main POV. We see everything through her eyes, through this entire story progress, see where things take place, and somehow she doesn't progress at all. Instead, she spends this entire time trying to fix Christian and justifying his shitty behavior with the fact that his mother's friend had a sexual relationship with him when he was 15 and she was like in her 40s and married. Well, it was very traumatic. It's not somehow. It was very traumatic for him, as well as trying to fix this idea of perfection when you are not perfect through his family's eyes. And while yes, like I said, that does bring about the reason for his behavior, it does not give you the justification. It does not say to me as the reader that what he's doing is okay. It's just telling me he has this problem that he needs to get fixed, or he needs to find a way to fix it. She is not the healing point, and somehow she turns herself into a hospital for him to try and fix him. Like, there's literally a scene during the climax of the book where she tells him that spanking is the equivalent of her touching him during sex, and he has a very big thing for people not to touch him during sex. It's part of the contract that he has, and she has been following it up until this point. And she tells him that is the equivalent, because it's not fun for her. She doesn't like being spanked for pleasure, doesn't like being spanked for punishment. It's just not fun. And that makes sense. That is understandable considering he tends to go very hard, and it doesn't make sense for her to be punished in that way, at least not without her given consent. And she states that very clearly. And then the minute that Christian Grey looks lost and confused, because that is the only way he finds gratification, and it is his therapy for whatever thing he has gone through, is to physically harm someone and not find a different, safe way to do things when they say no, is that she changes her mind and allows him to essentially take a belt and like destroy her ass. And it's just so appalling to me, because we spend this entire time wanting to find a reason to like Christian Grey. We try to figure out a way to see what she sees in him, to see it as romantic. And at the same time, we also spend this entire time glorifying this concept of being a hospital for a man who doesn't want to be fixed. He continually states in the book that he is just the way that he is, which is a really shitty reason just for someone to accept you for who you are without warning, and really kind of manipulative, because it's either a very much a take it or leave it situation. There will be no compromises. And it's very obvious that to Anna, this is her first relationship. She has never been involved with a guy sexually, romantically. She's never been attracted to someone. So of course she's gonna like push for him to be great and good. But we spend this entire time glorifying this concept of we can change the guy. And that's a really, I think, unhealthy concept, especially in situations where sex is involved, because it is not the woman's job to fix someone. It's not her job to adjust her life and her positions just so he feels fine. The entire book is him manipulating her by buying her presents, taking her things, saying the right words, and then when it comes to and it's not enough, she doesn't know what to do, he doesn't know what to do, so she adjusts herself. And that was the entirety of the book, and it was so infuriating. Because I can get past shitty writing, I can get past the stereotypical crappy-ass bad boy who stalks you, and I can't get past it. But I could work my way around it because it was a product of the time. But what I can't get past is the fact that she doesn't change. We spend this entire time to seeing her adjust herself for a man who doesn't want to take the time to figure out his own problems to fit with her. Instead, he runs it off with, this is how I am, this is just who I am, you'll have to take it or leave it. But just so you know, if you leave, this is the first time I've done anything like this with a woman. I feel very strongly for you, and I want to give things a try. But if you want to try, you have to be okay with not touching me, potentially not sleeping in the same bed, me controlling the fact that you're on birth control, because I like to go in raw, me controlling I'm gonna buy you a laptop, a phone, I'm gonna adjust your thing, I'm gonna take you on a fancy ass car ride, here are some clothes you have to wear. I have to have your undivided attention from every Friday night to Sunday morning, or whatever it is, for 3 months. And it's just, I don't get it. It was very infuriating to read, and I really don't know how people find this appealing, how they think this is okay behavior, how this is glorified. So I'm just very angry. Like, she even mentions how terrified she is of him several times in the book. Her friend mentions it. And somehow she's like, well, if I change him, maybe he won't be so scary. And that's what's being thrown out to women, to girls, and it's just very infuriating. And like, the only reason I'm continuing on with the series, is just to see how bad it gets, I guess, and to see if any kind of change has happened in the direction that it should have gone, because it could have been a book about a girl finding her sexuality and a guy realizing that he has some very toxic traits and like fixing it around because he wants to be better. And it's not. And it's just appalling. I don't know. But that is it for my very long-winded rant of 50 Shades of Grey. So, if you guys have any questions, concerns, I will have comments up. But yeah, until then, I'll talk to you guys everywhere else. Bye!